I feel like a mad scientist. Emphasis on the mad. I didn't want to be here. I didn't choose this path willingly. I had no choice. I was forced here by none other than Microsoft and Windows 11. See, a week ago, I bought a new PC. In fact, it was the last one at Micro Center that had 64 gigabytes of RAM. And yes, it was still priced like it was early 2025, and 2 sticks of RAM didn't cost more than an entire CPU like they do now. Seriously, I rolled out of Micro Center with this thing like I was on the last chopper out of Saigon. But when I got back home and I started setting this thing up, something happened. I had to sign in to Microsoft and use my Microsoft account just to install my PC. Like, the installer wouldn't install unless I was logged in to Microsoft. Now, I didn't remember my old Xbox account, so I just entered something that I vaguely remembered at Outlook.com, and it worked. It logged me in, but little did I know that this one login would be almost irreversible. Every single part of my PC was now tied to some Outlook email and profile that I don't use. Everything was attached to it. My login page, my OneDrive, my apps. I couldn't escape it. And on top of that, it felt like when I was logged in, I wasn't even using my PC that I bought. I was using some AI adjacent tool. Like, why is Copilot everywhere? I wasn't using my computer. I was allowing Microsoft Copilot to let me borrow it for a bit. This entire thing was such a turnoff that within 30 minutes, I wiped my PC. No backup, no nothing. I created a Linux installer on, I still have it here, on this very USB, and 7 days later, here I am. Now, I know what you're thinking. First off, this video is not gonna be Linux propaganda, okay? I'm not here to say that if you use Windows, you're wrong, or if you use Linux, you're right. But I will say that if you use Mac, then, well, you're a lost cause. No, but seriously, I'm not going door to door preaching the gospel of the penguin here, okay? But what I did discover on my journey on swapping over to Linux is that Linux users and Milsim gamers have probably a very small crossover if you were to put them on like a Venn diagram, but that Venn diagram should really be a perfect circle. Stick with me here. I played squad the other day for 3 hours or so. I got maybe a couple dozen kills, I did a lot of walking, and one round I got myself a nice win as a squad leader without even seeing a single enemy. I then hopped on to Armor Reforger, and honestly, I probably spent more time at the mob or in vehicles chatting with people than in actual combat. But in both of those games, after I was done, I was happy. I was content. I thought that that was time well spent, and when the action did eventually happen, it was awesome. The downtime in Milsim games makes those chaotic, intense moments so much better. It's a slow burn. It's more tactical. It's more social. It often rewards people who stop and think and look at the map. I don't need a developer like Activision telling me how to enjoy my gaming session with battle passes or loot boxes or live service slop, all right? Just like I don't need a company like Microsoft telling me how I should enjoy my own computer. The more I dove into Linux, the more I realized that this operating system kind of appealed exactly to me. And it reminded me of the first time I played Squad or Arma or Hell Let Loose. Your first few hours in any Milsim game is confusing. It's punishing, it's slow. Honestly, it's tedious. It kind of sucks, right? But after a bit, you're gonna think to yourself, wait, no, why am I even here? I could be playing literally any other game. How do people like this? Then you have a breakthrough and you begin enjoying it. Kind of just like Linux. So in this video, I want to share with you guys what I did to set up my PC and what I currently have running on this thing and how it's performing. Because if you're anything like me, you may have thought that gaming on Linux was nearly impossible. But on this computer, not only am I able to play Squad and Arma and Hell Let Loose and War Thunder, all of my usual daily games, everything you've seen so far in this video has been recorded on Linux and edited on Linux. But I also know some of y'all are going to say things like, well, Moi, I can't just go to Linux because once a week I play Battlefield 6 and it needs secure boot only on Windows. I knew you were going to say that, okay? I knew. You erase the comment right now. I have this set up where I have Windows 11 contained on a separate NVMe drive to literally just play Battlefield 6 or anything else that needs kernel level anti-cheat. Yeah, this PC, which is Linux and a little part Windows, has secure boot enabled. I cracked the code. Windows might have pushed me down this path a week ago, but 7 days later, I'm actually kind of really glad it happened, because now, well, Windows doesn't own my PC, all right, that I paid for. I own Windows. It only comes out when I want it to come out. And if I don't want it, I don't use it, it doesn't exist. So let me show you what I've got going on here, all right? I'm gonna be real with y'all, okay? I'm kind of computer stupid at times. I can build a PC. I'm somewhat familiar with basic programming concepts. But one of the biggest turnoffs for me when it came to Linux, in addition to the big question mark on gaming, was how complicated the whole process to swap over seemed. But the basics of Linux in reality, they're actually pretty straightforward. So just pick a distro, which is a version of Linux, and that's it. Just, if you're a gamer, you're probably going to want to look at the gaming focused distros like the one that I picked, which is CachyOS. Now, CachyOS is based off of Arch Linux, which is like the most difficult hipster way to use Linux. But I'm not saying that I picked it because I wanted things to be difficult or to be a hipster, but I picked it because CachyOS gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of performance specifically for gaming. In regular Arch, you can set up or not set up pretty much anything your computer does, but with CachyOS, it's very easy. It has a very easy installer, and the system itself is optimized to use your PC for gaming. Now, before we continue, I want to get ahead of this. I know some people are going to type in the comments, Moi, you should just use Bazite. Anyone who doesn't know Linux really shouldn't use anything Arch-based, but no, okay? I'm perfectly happy with Cachy. If you don't know what Bazite is, it kind of turns your PC into a Steam Deck. And now I'm not saying it's literally SteamOS and it's not literally turning your PC into a Steam Deck. I'm super simplifying here, but you have no real customization options, and it's built to allow people to just install it, play games, and not have to worry about all the Windows bloat. Yes, you can browse the internet and do regular work on it and all that normal stuff, but you're not given a lot of freedom on what you can and can't do. And just like Milsim games being a sandbox, I wanted my Linux build and I wanted my PC to also be a bit of a sandbox, but tailored for gaming and performance. And that's what CachyOS is like right out of the box. So it has custom configured Proton tools, which make games just perform seamlessly. And yes, they actually do work with easy anti-cheat games. It has CPU packages that maximize the performance. And overall, the system itself gives you a way better, like, stable FPS, and the 1% lows are way better than other Linux distros. Once again, I'm not pretending to be an expert on this, but to me, all this information looked good, and I installed it. It all just immediately worked right out the box. So I put squad on max settings on a 100-player full server, and I flew around an admin cam, and it was beautiful, dude. I mean, look at this. Like, squad itself is not a very well-optimized game, especially after they swapped over to Unreal Engine 5, right? But when I'm in squad, when I'm seeing this, on my CachyOS build, I would have no idea that I wasn't on Windows. Oh wait, yes I would, because my microphone has yet to reset. Yeah, one of my biggest problems I've run into, especially squad, but it's happened in Arma and stuff, I'm sure many of you guys have run into this problem too. Windows will just like randomly decide that your game can't use the microphone that's plugged in and that you've been using for the past week. It works for every other program, but surprise, today you can't use it. Well, since swapping to CachyOS, I haven't had that problem. I use a Rodecaster Pro 2 audio mixer to capture both my microphone here with an XLR cable, and then I have some programs and certain channels, 3 audio channels actually, for both gaming and recording. And on Windows, it's very easy to use. I literally just plug this in and Rodecaster knows it's Windows. It all works easy. You just select it, it's fine. But on CachyOS, it's, well, I think a good comparison is, you know how in Arma 3 you have that task force radio where you have to download TeamSpeak and then connect it to a mod and then join the game, and then you have to dial in your actual radio on the whole radio box, and then and only then are you allowed to talk? CachyOS setup for my Rodecaster, It was kind of like that, all right? I had to configure some options in the terminal to turn on Pro Audio. I downloaded a program called Helvum so I could verify what connections were the right ones for each channel, and now it works. Yeah, multi-channel audio is functioning. I can record on OBS. I can even route this entire master mix to my streaming PC. It's so cool, and now it just works. It took me a bit to set up, but now I actually understand my system and I don't have to touch it. But I'm getting ahead of myself here, okay? CachyOS was very, very, very easy to install originally, right? I created a USB installer from the file on their website. I booted my PC into the live environment with the USB. I installed it, and that was it. It took like 5 minutes, and I had a working computer. No Windows at all. The biggest change to me, though, was trying to get used to the terminal, but a combination of Reddit posts, wiki articles, ChatGPT, it all kind of helped me through this install. I got Steam going, and then I just pressed download on the game, and it worked. Hell it loose, it worked. Armor Reforger, installed the mods, waited in the long queue. Dude, it works. Squad, as we saw, both on the ground, in admin cam, it all works. Not a single easy anti-cheat error for any of these games. I'm just playing my Milsim games that I play day in and day out. No Windows at all. It's beautiful. Max settings on everything, great FPS. Why didn't I do this earlier? Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you. I can't lie to you, all right? It's not all rainbows and unicorns. Using Linux, it's kind of like skydiving with a parachute that you packed yourself. You know the plane is fine. You know the pilot is trained. You know the parachute that you're using itself is fine. But do you know how to follow the instructions well enough that this parachute will deploy properly? Do you trust yourself with the responsibility of your own life? There are many ways to have a perfect system in Linux, but there are equally as many ways to completely screw things up. Yeah, so I want to be very clear here. Again, if you're worried that your PC will just like not work if you install CachyOS or whatever, that's not true, all right? And if you play the types of games that I play, they all work on Cachy too. You can go to this website called ProtonDB, search for the games that you play regularly, and a lot of the ones that I like Squad, Arma, Hell Let Loose, War Thunder, Project Zomboid, whatever, they all work. And if for some reason you run into a problem, people just upload their steps on how to get the game working. So for example, there's a well-known physics bug in Skyrim where your character practically implodes while on the horse during the intro due to some physics issue. This user discovered that even on Linux, if you just edit your INI file with whatever code he pasted in here, the game is playable. So if gaming is your one hang-up on swapping from Windows to Linux, most games you actually play should be good to go. I'm sure some of y'all are saying, well, Moi, if it's so easy and CachyOS was so simple, why did it take you a week to figure it out, right? And that's a fair question. So I'm gonna preface this by saying that I'm not one of those tinfoil hat wearing guys that thinks every single thing Microsoft does is so evil that I'm willing to completely inconvenience myself for every single thing I do in life, right? From time to time, I like playing Battlefield 6, just like I like going to McDonald's every once in a while, right? I'm in the middle of a game development course and the Unreal Engine 5 editor is just simply easier in a Windows environment. I want to be able to play games that may not have Linux support at all, but I don't want my day-to-day average working life on my PC to have all the frustration of Windows updates, Copilot, ads, and I especially don't want to search Bing for OBS when I type OBS in the start menu. I want to just like bring up OBS. Is that so hard? Maybe one day I'll completely break free from Microsoft, but I wanted the ability to control Microsoft and use Windows only when I wanted to. So I have built a dual boot system. And what that means is that CachyOS is my default operating system. Whenever I start or restart my PC, CachyOS is what starts up. The CachyOS operating system is installed on a 2 terabyte NVMe drive, along with all of my other programs, and I have a second 2 terabyte NVMe drive where I have all my work files and my recordings. But I have a third 1 terabyte NVMe drive for Windows 11, and this is where things get a little complicated. So Windows 11, it's like a virus, seriously. And if you search on how to dual boot Linux and Windows, many people recommend installing them on separate drives because if Windows has the opportunity to take over your PC, it will 100% do it. I'm gonna put this in very simple terms so other people who are also not tech literate, because I am not tech literate at all, so that way you guys have an idea of what happens. When you start your PC, you have a boot manager, and CachyOS's default option is something called System D. You don't have to really know what it is, it just works and it tells your computer to load CachyOS when you press power. Simple enough. To dual boot your system, you need to install Windows on a separate drive and then go into your motherboard BIOS settings and make sure that Windows is lower than CachyOS on the priority for booting. That just means when you power it on, when you power it off, when you restart, whatever you do, your motherboard knows that CachyOS is the only thing you want because it's first, and Windows is second. Unless you specifically press a button during startup, like F11, you bring up the boot manager selection and then manually select Windows 11. Then, and only then, are you in Windows. And this is where I should have stopped and just read the manual. It's a tale as old as time, right? Think back to the games that you've played where some asshat who just picked it up on Steam sale, he has a total of like 30 minutes played, he has no idea how to play, no idea what he's doing, no idea the rules, he skipped the tutorial, he immediately jumps into a tank, or he picks commander, or he starts flying a helicopter. Those guys ruin games for you, for him, for everyone on the server. The great thing about Milsim games is generally they really are a sandbox and you can kind of do whatever you want. But the horrible thing about Milsim games is that you can truly do whatever you want. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I gotta speak my truth. Between you and me, day 2 of using Linux, I was acting like a Steam sale noob, all right? I was a blueberry, but I was a cocky, confident blueberry. I got this working. Why wouldn't I be confident? I was awesome, I knew everything. So instead of going back to the CachyOS Wikipedia to figure out how to secure boot Windows so I could play Battlefield 6, I thought I could do it by myself. I was feeling good. I knew how to use the terminal. I was able to type sudo pacman-s brave and the Brave browser installation started right up. I got this, nailed it. Day 2 Linux, Linux was my bitch, all right? So I opened up ChatGPT and I asked it how to secure boot my dual boot system. I followed the steps. I installed something called Grub, which is a boot manager that allows both my CachyOS system and my Windows system to talk to each other. Red flag number 1. And within an hour though, I was playing Battlefield 6. I need to be clear here. I got it working with ChatGPT. I didn't look at the wiki at all. I vibed through the whole thing and the vibes were immaculate, all right? So I went back to my CachyOS desktop and I had an idea. I don't want to press F11 when I boot up in order to select Windows and then press enter and then boot Windows like a caveman. This is Linux, this is my PC. I just want to hold down a button and automatically load into Windows. And ChatGPT said, yeah, dude, that's easy. Just edit Grub. Here's the code. You got it. So I edited Grub. And now when I press power, my PC booted into CachyOS, but if I pressed power and held down the escape button, automatically went into Windows. Vibes immaculate. And then I had another idea. What if I had a little desktop icon on my CachyOS desktop that I could click and it would automatically shut down my PC, restart my PC into Windows, and then boot up Battlefield 6? And ChatGPT said, yeah, dude, no problem, that's easy. Just edit Grub again. Here's the code. Little did I know, I just created a Trojan horse. No. I vibe coded a Trojan horse. I vibe coded a way for the virus that is Windows 11 to enter and take over my PC. The moment I pressed that shortcut, it was game over, but I didn't know it yet. My PC shut down and just like ChatGPT said, it booted into Windows and now I just had to program the Windows side of things that would automatically start Battlefield 6, but When I tried to get back into Cachy, I couldn't. I was stuck on Windows. The BIOS setting still had CachyOS as the primary boot option, but it didn't matter. I could select CachyOS from the boot manager and my computer would still ignore my selection and Windows 11 would boot. I'm not gonna pretend to know and understand everything what I did and what happened, but it was a disaster, okay? I spent a full day trying to pull my computer away from the grasp that is Windows 11. And in doing that, I dove deeper into ChatGPT. Hell, I brought in Claude. I asked Gemini. I had a side conversation going on with Grok. I was deep into AI, dude. I've got to say, I've never really used AI. Like, I don't like it. I find that it's often wrong, but I was so desperate for instant answers and an instant fix that I began like talking to ChatGPT. Not using ChatGPT, but like talking to it, dude. And if you've never gone down a long rabbit hole of AI conversations, AI kind of like starts imagining things. There's a real term called AI hallucination, and after a certain amount of input and output, AI just starts making things up and begins referencing these made up things like they are true facts. So I started listening to ChatGPT hallucinate, and something unimaginable happened. Now I'm in a firmware loop. It says I need to clear CMOS or something on my X870 board. I don't know why this is happening. I'm sure I'm going to get absolutely roasted in the comments here. I got a firmware error on startup. My motherboard was no longer working. I couldn't get into Windows. I couldn't even start into BIOS. I couldn't open a live install environment on this USB. Nothing was working. My ASRock motherboard simply said, I'm done. You destroyed me, congrats. And in this economy, the last thing I wanted to do was buy another motherboard. Are you kidding me? I was panicking. I took a screenshot and I asked ChatGPT calmly, saying, what should I do to fix my motherboard? No, dude, I was not calm at all. I was freaking out, bro. And I did learn something. If you swear at AI long enough, their answers will start to include swear words. So, the more you know. So ChatGPT actually had to like talk me down a ledge. It said, you have to go calm down because when you're irrational and you're upset, this is when you start breaking hardware. But it said you have to do something which is called clearing CMOS. And clearing CMOS essentially means you got to reset the battery. First problem, I didn't know motherboards had batteries, dude. Like, it's plugged in. Why does it need a battery? I'm telling you, I am tech illiterate, and I still got this working eventually, right? So ChatGPT tells me I have to remove the battery, and it's best to do so by using something that isn't metal. So I use a chopstick, and this battery is so stuck in that I end up snapping the tip off my chopstick, okay? It snapped off and got lost in my PC. All right, hold on. You see this right here? Yeah, that my chopstick broke. The tip of the chopstick broke off while trying to do the battery, and this little thing was still in my motherboard. After I got everything eventually working, I had to shake out gently my PC to get this chopstick tip out. It's an absolute disaster. So that happens, and then ChatGPT tells me once again to go take a walk and calm down, and when I'm ready, in a good state of mind, I have to jump CMOS. And I have to jump CMOS by finding these two little pins on my motherboard and put a screwdriver over them so the electricity jumps across and it resets the board. At this point, like, I actually thought it was over. I want to say I was brave and I was sticking with it. Dude, I was on the ground. I wasn't saying I was in the fetal position, but I was pretty close to.
One eternity later.
The screwdriver worked and I was able to get back into BIOS. I selected Windows. I was good. This entire thing was exhausting. It was borderline miserable at times, but when I woke up the next morning, I closed ChatGPT. I did a fresh install of Cachy. I did a fresh install of Windows, and I went to the CachyOS Wikipedia and just followed the instructions for secure booting word for word, and I had a fully working dual boot system up and running within an hour or two. So The moral of this story is this, all right? Windows will never let you do what I just did to my PC, right? There's too many protections. There's too many barriers that Microsoft have put up, and that can be a good thing. But I will say that I learned more about my computer and computers in general in that 36-hour period than I have in nearly 36 years of life, all right? But if I had just followed the manual, if I just used the wiki, and the wiki's great, if I just used the tools that Linux and CachyOS gave me from the get-go, I would have been fine. And I know that because when I did calm down, when I did put the AI away, and when I did just do everything step by step, it worked. And the satisfaction I got from making the system work how I wanted it to work is comparable to why I get so much satisfaction from Milsim games. They're hard, they're punishing. You need to be humbled a bit so you can learn from those who have already been there and done that. If you dick around and waste an entire day, well, it's gonna suck. Nothing's gonna happen. You need to realize you're not always the best, but if you take it slow and you think, you can kind of do a lot of really cool things. I now have a perfectly working system, and it's not the way Windows thinks it should be set up, but it's the way that I think it should be set up. So is Linux a little more involved than Windows? Yeah, but I know the type of person you are. I'm that same person, okay? I know that you may enjoy the nice and easy games of Battlefield 6 once in a while, but you'd much rather spend 3 hours working towards that really cool firefight or that awesome ambush in Arma. If you're willing to spend that much time just playing a game to enjoy them on that level, why not spend like a day or two taking back control of your computer? It's really rewarding, okay? Hey guys, Edit Moi here, and I realized while finishing this video, I never actually gave you guys a proper comparison of how something like Squad would perform on CachyOS compared to Windows 11. And since I do have a dual boot system, I can do that and have the same exact hardware, same exact environment, same everything, so a proper test. So I went to Fallujah on Squad on both CachyOS and Windows 11, an empty server. I just went into admin cam, I wanted a standardized test, make sure all the same assets started around, everything is like for like. And I flew over the main road into Blue Mosque. And on CachyOS, I had about 120 FPS, whereas on Windows 11, I had about 160 FPS. So you do have a performance hit because of the Proton layer that CachyOS has to use in order to use a game like Squad. But I will say, unless you're someone that can actually tell between 170 FPS and 120 FPS, like to me, even though I have a 144 Hertz monitor, both of these look the same. That's my eyes, it's not your eyes. If you think this looks different, then just take that into consideration. However, I will say I'm no longer experiencing hitching on either one of these with this build. So whether it's Windows 11 or CachyOS, I'm not getting those stutters while ADSing. I'm not getting hitches while huge explosions are going anywhere. So even though the overall FPS is a little lower, it is smooth. And I think that's one of the biggest advantages for at least CachyOS is that it gives you smooth performance, maybe not like cutting edge Windows top performance. But that is just Squad. If you saw some of the Hella Loose clips I had earlier, in the top left I actually had the FPS counter. On CachyOS, getting well over 200 FPS on something like Hell Let Loose, so your mileage will vary a little bit from game to game, but I'm not getting the hitches. I'm having nice, stable FPS max settings, and it's looking good. To me, 120 FPS on Cachy compared to 160 FPS on Windows 11, I'm willing to take the 40 FPS hit if I don't have to worry about Windows day in, day out. So full transparency, wanted to include that for you right here, and do with that as you will. Now, back to the video. But I'm not gonna lie to you and just say that the games that don't need secure boot work perfectly either. They're just, once again, more involved. And I'm gonna leave you with one last example, okay? All these games so far, no problems, but out of all the games that I'm now playing on Linux, the only one that I've had real issues with is War Thunder. I started getting massive hitches, but once again, there was a solution. I just had to look for it. It's called GameScope. It's a game environment that runs in the background to help your PC work with certain CPU or GPU bound games. And after installing GameScope, there's like no problems with this setup whatsoever. I just installed it through the terminal, searched some common Steam startup variables to limit War Thunder's FPS, and I also allowed full screen borderless mode, and now the game's working great. Seriously. I'm also still in the process of finding alternatives to things like Microsoft Office. I'm currently using only Office, but I've also heard good things about LibreOffice. I'm sure there's others that I don't know about, and I would love to find a proper Photoshop replacement, but for now, dude, I don't know if I see myself going back to Windows. Now that I have set up CachyOS to how I want it, and I can play all the games I play day in and day out, I can record, I can edit, I really feel like I was transported back to 2019 when I took that first step out in Kohat Toy and I realized, dude, this is freaking awesome. So yeah, if you're a Milsim enjoyer and you have an extra laptop laying around, or maybe you have a separate drive you want to try to install Linux on, dude, just try it. I think you'll enjoy it. Or if maybe you're a bit more daring, just back up your data and just full send something like Cachy. I started a Linux channel on my Discord so we can chat and offer support for if you do want to try it out. So if that interests you, check out the link down below. But overall, even after nearly dumpstering my PC, I love where we've ended up, and I learned a valuable lesson. Read the f***ing manual. But that's it. I'm loving Cachy, and I don't have to stick with Cachy. It's all open source, it's all free. I mean, you can donate to projects that you like if you want, but I'm not stuck here. You know, if I want to, I can go to Bazite, I can go check out Fedora, I can go check out whatever I want. You don't need to spend hours and days looking at distros and trying to min-max which one. Just pick one, enjoy it, have fun, read the manual, and you're gonna enjoy it. So there you go. I've drank the Kool-Aid. Hope you guys at least check it out. I think you're going to be surprised. But that's it for me. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more. If you have questions, if you want more videos on like what I actually did, more specifics and depths and guides, and I don't know, check out more Linux stuff or certain games on Linux, let me know. This is super cool. It's super eye-opening, like I said, and I'm absolutely loving it. But that's it for me. Till next time, peace.